Before the 7th of October 2023, most of the Israeli Jewish society was looking with some fear and apprehension towards the last weeks of this month. The main discourse in Israel up to the 7th of October 2023 was what would be the future of Israel. Weekly demonstrations by hundreds of thousands of Israelis were part of a movement of protest against the attempt of the government to change the constitutional law in Israel and to create a new political system by which the political powers would have total control over the judicial system, and the public domain would be far more controlled by messianic and religious Jewish groups. In one of my articles, I described that particular struggle for the identity of Israel that was the main topic until the 7th of October 2023, as a struggle between the state of Judea and the state of Israel. The state of Judea was the state that was established in the West Bank by Jewish settlers, and which was kind of a combination of Messianic Judaism, Zionist fanaticism, and racism, and became a kind of a power structure that became far more prominent and important in the last few years, especially under the Netanyahu government, and was about to impose its way of life, its perception of life on the rest of Israel, beyond what we call Judea, in a sense, beyond the West Bank or the Jewish space in the West Bank. Against it stood the state of Israel. The state of Israel, if you want, is best epitomized by the city of Tel Aviv. The idea that Israel is pluralistic, democratic, secular, Western, most important than anything else, or European if you want, and is fighting for its life against the state of Judea. And this seemed to be the focus on almost, one could call it, the civil war, if not a real civil war, at least a cold civil war, a cultural war for sure, between the Israeli Jews, between themselves. When some people said to both sides of this internal Israeli strife, what about the occupation of the West Bank, for instance? Should this not be part of the discussion of the future of Israel? They were told, no, the occupation should not be mentioned by any side. The occupation is irrelevant to the future of Israel, we were told. In fact, anyone who was trying to bring the occupation as a topic to the protests, the weekly protests, against the legal reform or legal revolution, as they like to call it, was asked to leave and not to appear with the larger group of protesters who were waving the Israeli flag. Definitely, if you brought the Palestinian flag to that demonstration, you would be beaten up and thrown out of the demonstration. If you would mention the fact that maybe the future of Israel is also the conditions and situation of the almost 2 million Palestinian citizens of Israel who were going through the last year through a process of criminalization, criminal gangs that still are terrorizing the life of Palestinian citizens in Israel, everywhere in Israel, armed gangs, criminal gangs. Many of them are former collaborators with Israel in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, who were extracted from these territories after the Oslo Accord, very well equipped with weapons and totally immunized from any police prosecution, or any kind of effective anti-criminal action, which meant that as many of you may know, Palestinians who live in Israel itself, I'm talking about the Israeli citizens, are fearful to go out at night because of the new reality in their streets and spaces. So that also was not meant to be a topic for discussion in the public domain on the future of Israel. If you wanted to mention East Jerusalem and the ethnic cleansing of the Arab neighborhoods of Jerusalem, again, the demonstrators and their leaders said this is not an important topic. Or as Amir Haas, the brave journalist of Haaretz, put it, as far as the Israelis were concerned, and this is until the 7th of October 2023, the occupation did not exist, which meant it did not exist as a problem anymore. It is solved. It is solved. There is a PA, there is a very intensive Jewish presence of settlements in the West Bank. No one has to deal with it anymore. In fact, if you look at the last 4 election campaigns in Israel, and they had quite a few, as you may remember, one after the other, on a yearly basis, nobody mentioned the Palestine issue, Palestine question, the occupation, call it what you will. This was not a topic that the Israelis were asked to vote about because it did not exist anymore as a problem. If you mentioned the Gaza Strip, if you were talking about the siege on Gaza, again, people would say, what are you talking about? This is also an issue that doesn't bother anyone anymore. And if you were pointing out to them that actually the daily killing of Palestinians in the last year, I want to say in the last 2 years, the daily killing of Palestinians in the West Bank, the constant and recurrent invasion of Al-Aqsa is something that will go unnoticed, and there will be repercussions for these policies